What's up, Duval? It's your favorite Jaguar, Bucky Brooks, and this is Bleav in Jaguars, a podcast dedicated to our favorite team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And today we are going to kind of reset, coming off of the heels of performance against the Minnesota Vikings, where the Jaguars came up short, 12-7. We're going to talk about that game, put a bow on that, and then begin to look ahead towards a really tough game on the slate against the Detroit Lions as it leads into a bye week and all of the stuff that has been swirling around the team. But before we get into that, let's pay off our sponsor, Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch games as it happens. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA, head to Bet Online today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online. The game starts here. Guys, you know the games are on, and we are nearing the stretch where if you're in the NFL locker room, you're talking about, hey, we're about to get on the run. This is the time to make the run. 10, 11 weeks into the season, you're trying to set yourself up to make a playoff run. For the teams that aren't in playoff contention, now individually, you're playing to make sure that you put good stuff on tape. Unfortunately, the Jags are now in the latter category. You're sitting at 2-8. Coming off another lost to the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday, 12-7, a game that was there for the taking, but unfortunately the Jaguars couldn't make enough plays to get it done. And so you have 1 week before you head into the bye week, and everything is swirling, right? During this time of year, the noise gets loud on the outside and even on the inside about who's to blame, who should be the fall guy, who's the scapegoat. Like, something has to happen to change it. And when you are a team that is trying to play under those circumstances, it can be really hard to focus and lock in. And what you're hoping going forward is that everyone is able to kind of like be a professional, understand what it is and what they can control, and then play to the best of their ability, coach to the best of their ability, and whatever happens, happens. But I'll be honest, man, it's been really disappointing after 10 games to sit here and think that the Jags are 2-8. Is a team that's talented enough to be better than obviously what their record is. A team that should be vying for a playoff berth based on, the president of franchise quarterback, weapons on the outside, a defense where they paid some players that were on the rise. But ultimately, you judge by your record, and your record at 2-8 is you are what you are. You've had opportunities to win these games, and you haven't won the games, and you're sitting at the bottom of the division. Currently occupying the number one overall draft pick in next year's draft, which would be the third time in 5 years that you've held that. I mean, just disappointing to think about that. Like, yeah, we can talk about the currency and, that may give you a ticket to get Travis Hunter or whoever emerges as the top guy in the draft. But it's certainly not where you want to be as a franchise, potentially picking the number one overall pick for the third time in 5 years. It's crazy. But before we even talk about like speculating on how the Jags could utilize their power position in the draft, let's talk about how they got here. And the game that we're going to talk about is obviously the Minnesota Vikings game, a game in which the Jaguars played fairly well defensively. They surrendered a lot of yards, gave up over 400 yards, but they came up with three, I would say, red zone takeaways. They did a really good job of executing the game plan, which was to bend but don't break. Die a slow death is what we say in league circles. They make them nickel and dime it, make them run it, don't allow them to throw it over the top, don't allow their best player, Justin Jefferson, to be a part of it, and see if Sam Darnold has the patience and the discipline to make the plays in the red zone. For about 3.5 quarters, Sam Darnold didn't have the patience and the discipline to drive the length of the field and then make the plays in the red zone. As a result, the Jaguars had given up a ton of yards, but they were sitting right where they needed to be with a in the fourth quarter with an opportunity to win the game, but just didn't get it done. Let's talk about the defense first before we get to the offense. So defensively, this was going to be a tricky game plan because when you're facing the Minnesota Vikings and the weapons that they have on the perimeter, Jordan Addison is a stud. Justin Jefferson is another level. So he's obviously going to command the double team. You got TJ Hawkinson in the middle. You got running backs, Aaron Jones, Tyson Chandler that can make things happen out of the backfield. But this is a team that is really talented. It was going to kind of stress you a few different ways if you try to play with your normal tactics. But to his credit, Ryan Nielsen changed it up. They went to a Tampa 2 look, an umbrella shell the entire game, kept the safeties back in the parking lot, discouraged the quarterback from taking shots down the field, and made them dink and dunk it down the field. And they did it. I mean, he was patient enough. He was smart, did a really good job working underneath. He did all those things. But when it came time to make it happen in the red zone, they were still 0-5, 3 interceptions. They didn't like dominate like they could have and maybe should have dominated. And the Jaguars did a really good job of creating turnovers off tips and overthrows. Part of the design to go to a umbrella type defense, a soft shell, Tampa 2, is keep all the big plays, keep all the plays in front, see the ball come out the quarterback's hands, because in zone, your eyes are fixated on the quarterback as opposed to the receiver. Get quicker jumps, more aggressive jumps on the ball so you can steal bases, and who knows what can happen. When I mean steal bases, like in terms of like eyes on the quarterback, we used to call it steal second in terms of the free safety being able to look at where the quarterback is going and jumping on it. In baseball, you steal off the pitcher, not the catcher, so kind of making that reference. So that's what I mean by steal bases. But anyway, they did all those things. Tips, overthrows, won in the red zone, dominated. And so the game was there for the taking. Defensively, I can't say enough about what they were able to do in terms of mixing traditional Tampa 2 zone with 2-man, where they could snug to the receivers, but you still had the 2 guys over top. So you could challenge all the underneath stuff. And to do that, you had to be willing to die slow death on the ground. Meaning, hey, man, we'll give you these little 4 and 5 yard plays. We're not going to drop another person in the box. We're going to make sure that we keep the big plays bottled up. And we're saying that once you hit a certain marker, 20-yard line, field tightens down, closes up, those sidelines and end line become 3 additional defenders. Now you're playing 11 on 14. We got some things working in our favor, and you can make plays. As a result, multiple interceptions in the end zone. Windows tighter, have to force throws, can't fit it in. The things that worked in the regular season aren't showing up now. All of that stuff plays a part of it, and it's exactly what Ryan Nielsen and their staff wanted to do. They wanted to allow them to move up and down the field, but stiffen up when it mattered, because 14 points, we would say 12 points, but 14 points was the magic number. Like 2 tubs, you win the game. So everything was set up. The defense was terrific. We saw that. Devin Lloyd is someone that needs recognition. 15 sacks, 15 tackles in his first game back. Active motor, played all over. He and Foye Oluokun, they pretty dominated the game from inside out. Gotta love that. On the perimeter, can't say enough about the job that Tyson Campbell did, challenging Justin Jefferson and others. They played right and left. Those guys got in their face, made it miserable, made them work, and they did a really good job taking the underneath stuff. With the safeties parked in the parking lot, you can be even more aggressive because you're protected. They took advantage of those opportunities, and so hats off to them. The defense, 400 yards you won't like on the stat sheet, but you got to like the number of points allowed, 12, the number of turnovers that they kept it together. Overall, it was good. Now, here's the bad part. As good as the offense was, as deserving as that unit was of getting the praise, man, on the other side of the ball, it was terrible. It was just bad. It was bad. I don't know how else to break it down. Like, you barely have 160 yards of total offense. Like, you just can't move the ball. It just doesn't look good. It was a bad product. And for someone who a lot of people were excited about, I was even excited about the possibility of Mac Jones getting his first start and what Mac Jones would do and how this could be a springboard to some great stuff for him. Bad performance for him. Bad performance, however you slice it. Offense only gained 149 yards, 43 yards of total offense. They only had 10 first downs. He was fine. He didn't do anything to necessarily hurt him, but he just didn't give them what they needed in terms of like playmaking ability, competent passing ability from the pocket. That's what they needed. They need a competent passer from the pocket, not an A-level player, not a C-level player, but someone that could take the snap, make it happen, ball goes the right way. They didn't get that. He was 14 for 22, 111 yards as pedestrian production, 2 interceptions. I mean, just more bad decision-making, bad judgment. All of those things can be uttered when you look at those charts. And the thing about this offense is you would think that, okay, we're going to lean into the running game. The running game is going to help us navigate and survive it. And the running game was fine. Like it was fine. It wasn't great, but it was fine. You had 18 carries, you had 56 yards. That's okay. It's not like you had a ton of opportunities to run it comparison to, the opponent who ran it 43 times, 469 yards, only averaged 3.9 a play. But man, that's how often were they able to stay on the field by making enough plays to win drives. That's what they were able to do. But Mac Jones will take a lot of the criticism. And look, he got a little jittery. He saw ghosts on occasion, got rid of the ball before like people were really around. Like that happens. But what you can't have happen is someone to be so inaccurate, someone to be so mystified that they can't operate the offense. That's problematic. And I felt like he was in a fog. He was not on his game. And I would say it only got worse. It only got worse as he came to the sideline. You got some receivers frustrated, belly aching about not getting the ball and those things. You got to keep those guys away from it. You can't have those kinds of things because what it tells me is the team quickly lost belief in the backup quarterback after a few series. They wouldn't go after it. Gabe Davis had opportunities on 50-50 balls to make his quarterback right. Couldn't come down with it. So now whether that's just an execution thing, that's a chemistry thing where I don't like him, so I'm not going to get my we got to figure out how to move beyond that part of it. Because Gabe Davis and Mac Jones misfired on a couple of those interceptions. One underneath. Can't say that Gabe Davis fought back hard for it. You got to break that up. You got to know time, score, situation. That is not a catch. That's a catch. It has to be an immediate shutdown. And then we got to break all of this stuff up. And when I mean break it up, blow it up, or whatever, I'm saying blow up the game plan. Because right now the game plan is not working for what this team is expecting from this offense. Haven't been able to run the ball effectively. And without the running game, you can't protect the backup quarterback. And without the backup quarterback being protected, it becomes a bit of a turnover fest when he's having to throw too much. Somehow this offense has to get back on track, and that's running the football, being physical, dominating the line of scrimmage. 18 for 56, 3.1 yards per carry. And the only guy that was over 4 yards a pop was Travis Etienne, 11 for 44. I mean, that's fine. You just need to have better production from the unit. When it comes to the unit, I would say like the running backs hit it hard, but like it's the offensive line, man. And the offensive line the last 2 weeks has not shown up and dominated when they've had opportunities. And I know they do a much complex stuff. I know Floyd sends a lot of stuff to disrupt and exploit the protection, the run game, or whatever. But this comes down to physicality and toughness. And look, they couldn't win the war at the line of scrimmage. I mean, it was laughable in terms of how Vikings were able to do whatever they want to do on each side of the ball. And to me, it's a big indictment on the way the team is constructed. If you can't control the line of scrimmage, offensive and defensive line, you have no shot. And right now the Jaguars don't have a shot because they don't have those lines in place to be able to do it. How do we fix it in game? How do we fix it in the moment? Well, you can do some tweaks and adjustments and try and figure out how you fit versus the other team. But a lot of it is, man, just repetition and execution. Like, here's what we expect. This is what we're going to be about. We got to be tough enough to do it. We got to be arrogant about doing it. We have to feel like we got the answers. We know that we can get this done, but I just don't feel the same energy. And I'm not going to lie. At the end of the game, I've seen this team a ton. I've seen this team kind of go through it. And at the end of the game, it was as dejected a group as I've seen it. And I don't know if they feel like they're hopeless without the backup quarterback there, but it has to be more energy, more enthusiasm, more go-getter mentality for this team to kind of turn it around. And I just don't know. I don't know if we can kind of get this done. We got a tough game ahead with the Detroit Lions, and so we're going to have to kind of beef up the approach. We're going to have to add some physicality to what we want to do because we're not going to be able to outskill some of the teams that are left on the schedule. So it has to come down to the fundamentals. It has to come down to toughness, physicality, and doing the little things to win games. And so we'll see what it looks like. But Mac Jones was a disappointment. Offensive line was a disappointment. Running backs did okay, but they were limited in terms of their chances. And then, look, the wide receivers, pass catchers are dependent upon the quarterback. it just didn't work. It didn't look good. Hopefully they can find a way to get it back on track. But all of those conversations bring me back to maybe the most important conversation, the one that I probably should have started the pod with, is what do you do with Trevor Lawrence? You're now sitting here at 2-8. Your playoff hopes are on a life support. You have a backup quarterback who's a former first-round pick who's using this as a bit of an audition. But what do you do with Trevor Lawrence? Trevor Lawrence potentially could come back. They talk about maybe Lions game after the Lions game or whatever. Well, if he's ready to go, do you give him the ball if the team is 2-9? Or do you protect him against himself and say, hey, man, we're going to chill it out, shut it down. We're going to worry about you getting 100% healthy, and we'll deal with next year. That's a tough conversation to have, because when the quarterback goes out, this is like the captain on the ship in the Titanic, got to go down with the ship. Some expectation is that he has to go down with the team. He has to, if he can play, he has to come back and play and go down with the team. Others would say, like, man, I love that concept. It's fair and noble, but nah, we're not doing it. We're going to let him get right. We're going to let him go attack the offseason, let him be fully healthy and ready to go when we kick off OTAs. Timing is everything. And because of the timing, because of where we are in the process, I think you have to shut him down against his own will, sort out whatever you got to sort out when it comes to coaches, front office, and then allow Trevor Lawrence to be at his best in 2025. To me, that's the only way to do it. That's the only way to kind of get back what you want from the former number 1 overall pick, and that's doing him a solid. Play him a game of dominoes, let him get up and win, let him feel like he knows what he's doing, and then let him have the success that he needs to have later on in the summer so he can bounce back and have a great year. But to put him out there now when the team is hopeless when it comes to the postseason, yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. And it's one of the reasons why I would anticipate the Jaguars finally put him on ice, putting him on our IR, and allowing whoever is the coach and the front office leaders next year to find a way to bring him back and find a way to get him back up to par. So we had a quick podcast today. I want to take and touch on a little bit about the Minnesota Vikings game. It's midweek, it's Wednesday, it's hump day. We'll now begin to cast our eyes towards the Detroit Lions. On Friday, we'll break down all the things that the Lions do, why they're so good, how Dan Campbell has changed the culture in the locker room, but more importantly, how has he changed the results that the team are getting on the field. It's something to watch and something that we need to consider if some things materialize down the stretch where we suddenly find ourselves looking for a new coach. But until that point, let's make sure we rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, all the cool things that Bleav and the Bleav Network are doing. Make sure you check that out, YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend about the podcast and all the cool things that we're doing as it relates to the Jags. Look, I know most of you guys are at Duval till we die. Let's make sure that we show up each and every time we got something going so we can have that little inner discussion about our team. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks. This is Bleav in Jags. I'm out.